Hey everyone, this is Mark Schillinger, founder of the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, a rite of passage initiation adventure camp for young men ages 13 to 20. And when I say rite of passage, I simply mean an event where our trained mentors, and you're going to meet one of our best trained mentors for young men, Mitch, DeArmon. It's where our trained mentors help the young men make this transition from the comforts of boyhood to the challenges of young adulthood. It's an outrageous event. We challenge the young men emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, to really see that they have the right stuff to get out into the world. We've had thousands of young men from all different backgrounds, athletically, academically, socially, economically, racially, all successfully graduate this event. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to, as I hinted at before, probably the one guy who's most responsible for making the rest of us experts on dealing with young men. So this is really my guy. He's really helped me more than anybody really become the coach that I am and mentor I am for young men. So Mitch DeArmon, thank you for being on this call and meeting all the parents who want to get to know the man behind the men. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I really want to jump into is having you take a moment to describe what it was like when you and I were putting the YMUW together, and especially when we were coming up with defining the ringmaster position. I'd like the parents to know what you do with the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend and what other subsequent ringmasters like myself and others that you've trained to do this job. How do you perceive this job, and how would you tell the parents, how important it is for those young men to show up knowing there's a guy like you who can kind of contain all their stuff?
Well, I think the first thing about having a decent ringmaster anyway is having a group of men behind him or around him that can support stability, like men who are organized well enough that they can make sure that logistics are happening and there's not a lot of distractions, so that the attention that we give young men is direct and eye-to-eye, forthright, instead of in the midst of doing other things.
Yeah, and you're making a really good point. Like what Mitch is talking about is, the ringmaster is the man who's right in front of the young men. I mean, we may have 75 mentors, but he's the guy who's literally addressing young men and the mentors and all the volunteers basically at one time. What would you say, Mitch? I remember when you and I were putting this position together, we talked about we'd want the young men maybe to even go to their deathbed, really remembering this man in their life, the ringmaster, and you mentioned that one of the things that makes it work is that you have all these men behind you that can help you do it. But at some point, it's really the ringmaster who's got to contain everybody. What would you say are the characteristics of a ringmaster like yourself and men like myself who you've trained that really allow us to get the attention of the young men, separate from having all these other men back them up? What are some of the qualities that ringmasters must have, and how that may relate to parents having those same qualities?
Well, I think in the context of the Young Men's Weekend, having a pretty firm grasp on principles like we use honor what's right, and having a very good grasp and practice that as a discipline of daily living, so that we have integrity when we are addressing the young men. Not that we get caught up emotionally in what they're doing, or get caught up emotionally in what our response is to what they're doing, but that we have some guidelines for ourselves, so that when things become unpredictable, as they should with young men, we can provide security with our own stability.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that's really important. I know that you've coached parents and young men. I certainly do that. One of the things that I do when I'm coaching parents is to have them pick out at least 5 virtues that they want their son to learn, like responsibility or accountability. And we have these, what you were calling back in the day, these codes of conduct based on the right way: respect, intelligence, gallantry, humor, true. How can that help parents, working with their sons, if they have a way, if they have a clear path, if they have some values that prevent them from being disturbed by all the things that young men do?
Well, I think that, some key terms that get used that we want to provide for our children, young men, whatever, is structure. Yep. And when the structure goes from the home environment, when you get up for school and all that, to the structure that you have internally, For parents to maintain that structure is to maintain their own sense of self while they're addressing their young men.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so probably what's most important is that the parents are so adept or well versed in what they do that it's exactly what they want to teach the young men to do.
Oh, so you bring up a good point. One of the things about mentoring, which you and I have learned, is that it's still, and even parenting, it's still monkey see, monkey do, right? So I hear what you're saying, that if the parents are not modeling for their sons what they want their sons to learn, it's not going to go well, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as soon as you lose credibility with the inconsistency, although that supports the independence of the young man, it doesn't support his security while becoming independent. Right. So he's going out into the world knowing less without you rather than knowing what you've taught him.
Wow. And what about this thing about, like, we find at the YMUW, we've created a tribe. That's basically what, we've put together as a tribe of men. And then these young men sort of fit in, they can kind of sense that we're containing them. And so we don't leave our container. We don't leave our standards, right? So I know you're telling parents now that they should have their standards and they should stay within them. But I know you've taught us something really important, which is you used to say, as much as we need a code of conduct and standards, we don't want to beat them over the head with them either, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, as soon as you start that behavior, you're disrespecting them. And I think one of the things I want to make sure I mention, even though this might be a little off topic, is we are in such great times right now that, the notion of manhood is so diverse right now. And one of the greatest things that the YMUW is bringing to the table is the diversity of the men, where everybody has a place and everybody fits into a structure where we stay organized and we get the things done we need to get done. And that's not the athletic guy, the super intelligent guy, the computer nerd guy. It's all of them working together. And I think that that's a very important part to help the young men socialize.
Yeah. And you made a good point. You said, like, we're not going to beat them over the head with standards because we want them to respect us, right? As parents or adults. And yet I'll hear parents say, I'm sure I felt this way when my son Gabe, who is a teenager, like, why should I need my son to respect me? I'm paying all the money. I'm providing all the comforts. I'm doing all that. And yet I know we came up with this expression when we used to teach parenting workshops together. You have to give respect to get respect. So I'd love for you to say more about that, because I think parents are still seeing their sons as boys and not young men where they have to earn their respect.
Well, it's funny how we as parents get caught up in the emotions of the kid. It's a very strange world right now, because, like, when my kids would get in trouble and I would be called to their junior high school to have a conversation that they want to have, and how important it is that the parents don't act like they're the ones in trouble. And when they're addressing their young men, that they're not acting like the young men. The important part for adults is to be something that the kids can relate to, not, oh, I'm going to relate to you. It's like, I'm part of the ringmaster job. It's not my job to relate to them. It's their job to relate to me. And so if I can discipline myself, or any of us as ringmasters can discipline ourselves as something worthy of being related to, that's really important. And but the other part of it is where weakness is shown in that situation is if you let on that you need respect. If you let on you need respect, you're showing a weakness. And what that monkey is going to do at that point is exploit the weakness, because that's what we are.
Absolutely.
Like they want to dominate, whether it's on the skateboard or on the football field or on the video game. They want to dominate. It's their nature forever. And in these last 20, 30 years, the idea that you're going to take 30,000 years of evolution out of a kid because of a political position, it's just not happening. And now we're medicating them and throwing them in jail.
Okay, before we go on, do you have a light you can turn on? I just want the viewers to know that you're in a car because you're getting ready to go into a sweat lodge and you're graceful enough, gallant enough to do this interview. Is there any way we can see your face?
I think I just got it back again.
Okay, cool. That's better. We got to see your face a little bit.
It's good. You don't want anybody to miss out on this.
No, absolutely not. That bald head is famous.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, look at you. Okay.
I'll step out of the car and this even works.
Okay, no, if you stay still, we can make it work.
All right.
Okay, cool. All right. So you were talking about, like, the parents staying within themselves and having a way, and if they need respect from their sons, game is over. You and I have talked about many times about, young men have a keen sniffer. They have that, as you said, 30,000, really 300,000 or more years of evolution where they can kind of sniff which adults can take care of them and lead them to the promised land of moving out of the house and which ones can't, right? That's a very important thing. So with regards to parenting, what do you recommend like parents do to kind of change their mindset from their son being a boy to their son being a young man and needs to be treated like that? We know rite of passage is a big help, but any tips as far as, sort of any internal changes they need to make or any personal growth they need to go through, anything like that?
I think the first step mainly is resource allocation.
Meaning?
Is like quit giving them stuff and don't bribe them with rewards anymore. Yeah. When they're 10 and 12, if you do this, I'll give you a cookie. That's appropriate. But when they become teenagers, it's like it's not a bargain anymore. You're not making a deal with them, because the mindset that you should have when they hit puberty is they're getting ready to live without you, not live with you. Yeah. And if you're living with me, you better bring something to the table if you want equality.
Yeah. Yep.
If you want this to be a fair relationship, I'm putting $100,000 in the bank, and what you're going to do is clean your room because I put a roof over your head, and you make clear that they're guests in your house now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. And we hear all the time from parents like they want to send their son to YMUW, but he's a special need, right? And even though we know here in the politically correct Bay Area, like there are, we want to respect special needs. However, I think what really got YMUW off the ground with men like yourself and others leading was that we didn't want to make anybody have a special need, because that sense of specialty is what prevents them from joining the tribe and all moving in the right direction, which you were always very emphatic about with us. Like, we're all going one way. And we were amazed at how quickly even the most arrogant, withdrawn young men would get right in line the moment they saw that you were not kidding. This is where we're going, So we know that young. Yeah.
Well, I think that one of the things that has happened is that the ego of the parents has gotten involved with the identity of special needs. My kid is especially sensitive to whatever, or he's got this condition or that condition. And the parents' ego gets involved with that, and they actually promote the kid's identity. Like, oh, here's my kid. He's got ADHD.
Yep.
And they use that special need as a promotional device for their own kid, instead of going, hey, you know what? Here's my kid. And leaving it to, because you're basically giving when you identify the kid by a pathological situation or whatever, you're giving him the reason that he's legitimately can fail.
Yeah.
You're telling him it's okay if you don't perform like everybody else, Junior, because you've got whatever Dr. So-and-so gave you as an identity. And it's no way to live their life. I mean, these things should be addressed, but they're not a part of who the person is.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things about YMUW is that we're always encouraging them to discover who their own unique virtues and values and behaviors are, while also simultaneously learning to adapt to the responsibilities of the home and the community. So it can all be true. They can be special in that they are unique, and the right way philosophy is all about bringing out the unique nature of each person. And at the same time, they can learn to conform. And that's what we learned at YMUW. If you kept us all moving in the right direction, they would all of a sudden miraculously take their medicines at the right time, whereas their parents were concerned they wouldn't, or they would eat whatever was served them. Like we rarely had problems. So what you're saying was really borne out in action when they're around a tribe of men and young men.
Well, and what when they go from the nuclear family experience into preparing for a social experience, it's really important that we focus on what their contribution is. We got to give them something to do. Mm-hmm. Now they're busy trying to get out of doing everything. We got to give them something to do, and they don't get anything until it's complete. Right. You don't bribe them halfway through and renegotiate the terms and say, hey man, as soon as that's done, we're going to eat.
Yeah.
We're not going to eat until it's done. So if it takes you 10 minutes, we're eating. If it takes you 10 hours, we're eating. But we're going to eat when it's done.
And what would you say, we have consequences, of course, at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, just like when we coach parents, of course we have consequences, but we're very clear. They're not punishments. They're not punitive. It's about getting them in alignment with the values of the tribe, right? So I think there's something about the context of a consequence is like a teaching opportunity for them to learn how it's going to be out there in the real world versus a punishment. And that's what I kind of hearing you say, that consequences are a direct result of their own behavior. It's not that they get to blame somebody else. It's about what they're doing or not doing.
Well, and I think one of the things that we're clear on at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend is that the consequences that we're giving them are made up. They're pseudo consequences because in that environment, they're protected from real consequences. True. Like if you act out or you do this, instead of getting arrested, we'll do 10 push-ups or 50 push-ups or whatever it is. And they're used at the moment when life would give them natural consequences.
Yep.
For their failings. You could call it mental, psychological, emotional failings, and they get a consequence for that. They didn't show up on time, yep, or whatever it is, and which life is not about demanding being forgiven.
Yeah.
And so often we treat our children like children for way too long because we forgive too easily, which is not in their benefit.
Right.
It's good to forgive, of course. But we're talking about a creature that is developing. We're not talking about a finished, done product. And so making sure that we help them understand that when they're no longer under the umbrella of us, yeah, the world's going to give them real life consequence. You get hit by a car, you're going to be hurt for real.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know you always taught us that expression, like, no sugarcoating, just straight up. Here's what it's like. Welcome. And we find that when we treat young men like that, they want to be like us. They want to, like you've often taught us, they want to have camaraderie. They want to boast. They want to win. They want to be our heroes. We just have to create an environment for them to do so, is what I know we've discovered with young men.
Well, and they do. They create that environment for themselves. I'm getting close to a fire, yeah, so I got better light.
Okay. Oh, I
think this will work a little bit better.
Ooh, that's beautiful. If we can do that for another 5 or 10 minutes.
That's Sal right there. He's doing the fire.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so it's super important that it's understood that these are not natural consequences when we're giving them to them, but it's the moment in life that life is going to give them a lesson that maybe they could be preparing for by being at an initiation.
Yep.
It's like,
yep,
it's not the one we give them. So it just reminds them of, like, at this point, something's going to happen to you out of your control.
Yep. One thing I'd like to bring up, really important. You used to use an expression that, I've just never stopped using. And of course we use it at the YMUW, which is this, the young men have to scar over their wound. Remember that we used to say, we don't want to keep reopening the wound and keep talking about it and keep bringing it up and keep encouraging it, that at some point a young man has to scar that wound that they have. And so you and I created that grieving ceremony for young men, which we've been talking about it on all these videos that I've been interviewing other mentors and stuff. So I would love for you to address for a moment, how the grieving ceremony, which I'm happy to put out there what we do, and we have been, so like how the grieving ceremony was created so the young men could scar over their wound, and so that when we return them to their families, the parents should be treating them like young men because we've given them the opportunity, the young men, to really release those past pains and frustrations and not keep going back to it and have that as an excuse to why they're so special.
Yeah, really. It's a big moment for young men. I think the modern term for what we're talking about is closure.
Yeah.
but unfortunately, most closure is a dialogue, and in grief, the emotions are so deep. There's not a dialogue to have them. You can't sit there and go like, okay, I'm grieving now. That's not grief. You know, if there's not some tears, if there's not a bunch of rage, I mean, imagine being told 100,000 times in your life how pissed you must be by then.
Yeah.
And when these young men are getting on the verge of taking responsibility for their own lives, they've been told no about 1,000 million times. Yeah. And every no is a failure. Every no is a ripoff. It's a loss.
Yeah.
I cannot express my own power because this person is saying no, and I'm not willing to pay the price for whatever I'm not willing to pay the price for.
Okay, so they come to the weekend. They come to the weekend. They get a chance to grieve, which is a very powerful physical event. It's not talk therapy. They push up against adult men. They get a chance in the middle of the night. It's out in the middle of the woods, and they get a chance to push up against these men, and the men represent all their pain and past hurts and disappointments. And it's very intense. It's very physical. What's the value of having them sort of leave it out all on the field there, so to speak, so they can start fresh again?
Well, I think probably the best benefit of actual grief is it separates us from our ego around the hurt. It separates us from the identity of I went through this.
Yeah.
It is a way of, essentially, and I don't want to minimize what post-traumatic stress disorder is, but essentially it moves them through a difficult, stressful, hard situation so that their ego is not attached to it in 10 or 15 years. Right. Like at some point in our lives, it's really important that we don't identify ourselves by our childhood. Mm-hmm. And so when you grieve the loss of your childhood, all the pains, hurt, successes, whatever, you're able to move into a different world and create new options.
Yep.
And so encouraging them to continually dig up that trash, yeah, and reimagine it and reshape it and re-express it is just sending them back into their childhood over and over again. And yeah, and the truth of the matter is, after grief, you become current.
Yeah, you're present. You're mindful.
You're done. And to leave it done. But so often, we want to feel sympathetic. So we keep on supporting people to dig in again. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your dad didn't come to your football game.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
I think one of the things that's really helped us not fall into that trap as mentors at Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, and certainly in our training that you and I do of parents and helping them be better parents to their sons, is we have this notion that young men do not need to be fixed. They don't need to be saved. There's nothing wrong with them. They're doing, as you hinted at before in this interview, about like they're doing what their evolution has taught them to do. They're getting ready to express themselves and get out. And as you once said to us years ago, because you got a call from a parent who was complaining that testosterone is a disease, right? So I remember when you told us about that. We're saying, no, it's the opposite. These young men are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're supposed to be doing this. So it's really on the culture, training the parents on how to accept all this stuff. And that's why I think the rite of passage is that first place where the parents give their sons up and let us take care of that for them. So how do you see rite of passage? I mean, I know you've put on your own rite of passages. You've been around other organizations that do rite of passage. Before we wind down here, I'd love to ask you 2 or 3 more questions, but one of them would be like, how is it that rite of passage can really help the world? I think way more than it really knows.
Well, it's so the first thing that an initiation does, the initiation just by definition is the beginning. It's where something starts. And as our society continues to redefine manhood, and puts more on it than what used to be on it. There used to be a very narrow scope of what being a man was. Now it's measuring up to the complexity of our social situation. Now we're having a whole bunch of very cool, diverse experiences with what being a man is now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so as we're moving young men into it, we're basically saying, get going. Hey, man,
Yep.
get going. It's time now that you no longer look behind you. You no longer call your parents every time you don't want to deal with this situation. You know, you need to, there's a particular way that men in our culture that we're going to say is to be with women. And we're going to say, here's how a man is with a woman. If it's a heterosexual relationship, it's not this thing that you have to figure out. And all that criteria should match our social structure.
Mm-hmm.
What is the morality, forgiving me for the word, what is the morality of our society that we're going to say, this is it? And to fit in with the men, you discipline yourself to this.
Got it. So then the rite of passage creates this container where the young men see all these adult men and other young men resonating with or learning these codes of conduct, or here's where you fit in. And
exactly.
We know
it's not where you fit in. Here's how to fit in.
Got it. Here's how you fit in. And that's what really makes the community safer, and I think more prosperous and more safe for everybody when the young men know their role, and certainly, separate from their own personal virtues and the way that they creatively express it. When they know their role in the community and in their family, it brings them honor, actually. And you're hinting that we often take that away from them by always making them wrong or saying no, all
mm-hmm.
that.
And the sense of belonging that we can identify when you're walking down the street and you see a person walking a particular way, judgments happen. And you're deciding, everybody, is by this person's body, whatever, are they safe? Are they hostile? Are they open? Are they reliable? And all those things happen in split seconds. Mm-hmm. And so who to say hi to, who not to say hi to, because you're making these evaluations, and all we're doing is we're making those things conscious. We're saying, here's how to shake a hand. Here's how to look a person in the eye when you're talking about whatever you need to talk to them about. That there's some criteria here so that when you interact in the society, more importantly than your name and your background is, how are you behaving in society with other people? And
Yep.
Can they rely on you, not can you rely on them?
Absolutely. One of the things that we're doing now in conjunction with the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, as you know, Mitch, but I want the viewers to know, is that while Mitch and other men are in the woods with the young men, I'm in a hotel with some of the other volunteers doing a rite of passage for parents. Now, we call it a parenting workshop, but I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Mitch, but they don't know. They're coming to a rite of passage for parents, right? And we do ceremony, we do all sorts of things. But the main thing is where they learn to grieve and let go of their sons as boys, and how to behave with young men, so that they can get the love and the care and cooperative relationships that they've always wanted. They actually have to go through a rite of passage too. So I'm really finding that when both the parents and the young men go through a rite of passage, the rate of success for them having better relationships and more cooperative is way higher than when it's just one or the other. So I'm just seeing that need in the culture right now is parents need rite of passage also, because just sending their sons is not enough, because the parents are inundated with, devices, and they got to work and they got to do so much. We're all overwhelmed. I think they need a rite of passage as well to sort of welcome them into a new phase of life.
Well, and I think that it's super important. Here's why I think it's important, because we have parents that are older and their sons are older, like 20s and 30s, and they still talk to them like they're a child. They still call them their babies.
Totally.
It's like, rather than going like, this is my son, his name's whatever. It's like, or this is my son, just identify him by his name. And if you don't get it initiated as a parent, you will still relate to your adult offspring like they're little children. And what that means is that the parent's ego is stuck in the child's childhood. Mm-hmm. And so they don't even see the adult person in front of them. They're not even identifying this person that's standing next to them as an adult, even though they're 25 years old.
Right. And both you and I know as parents, right? Because we have older children now. It's like, to me, simultaneously, both can be true. we need to treat our adult children like adults. And yes, we don't have to deny the lovey-dovey parent-child feelings we have for them, right? Like I've seen you lead men when you say, even me some days back, 20 years ago when I was going through something emotional, you would say, okay, Mark, now that we know how you're feeling, how are you doing? How are you behaving? So we don't want to deny parents their feelings for their children, that they love them as children, and their behaviors, I'm hearing you say, need to be totally spot on. These are adults you're dealing with, and you need to see them for who they are, not how you remember who they were.
Which in a really simple term is you need to remain conscious when your children are growing up. Yeah. You need to be looking at a 25-year-old as a 25-year-old. That would be consciousness. Yeah. Looking at a 25-year-old as someone who's still in diapers or has a little league uniform on, and how much you just love those times is romantic, and it's really cool. It's just not the facts.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna help them parenting. That's for sure.
No.
So, and we've both felt that as parents, but we've grown up in a tribe of parents, so we know how to do it better. We've learned from the people we teach. They've been teaching us. It's been great. So hopefully we've been making those mistakes a little bit less. Okay, last question. I would love for you, because I know, like me, you're just kind of ultimately a lover of humanity, public servant for real. Somebody who is a visionary, who wants to see a beautiful world. I know that about you. So I'd love for you just to take a moment about, how do you see the world could go or should go? What's your vision, for families and young men, or the world at large? And, just where do you see we could or should go? Or what's your bright picture of a future? Can it happen? And what would it be like?
Wow.
I know, take your time.
That's a huge question.
I know.
What I would what I think primarily would be a way to communicate where the rules are the same for everybody.
Totally.
So that we could have communities, and that the health and well-being of the community and who we are as a people is identified before the individual characteristics. Mm-hmm. So it's whether it be our clothes or what the things that create culture. Sometimes it's our clothes, sometimes it's the slang we use, and that those things are continually expanding and developing and changing. And that we have such a great level of security with each other that none of that is a threat to us.
Thank you.
That we don't have to hold on to what we used to think, because it's perfectly safe to think something different. And so I think what I'm saying is that we have a lot more care and a lot less pride.
Yeah. This polarization is really killing us as human beings now. I really see that. One of my favorite expressions is that we can have distinct perspectives, but we're never different. We're still humans. We still all came from same source or creator, however people relate to that. We're still always one while appearing distinct, but we're never really different. And we have to, that's why we put respect at the first virtue of, when you can hold somebody in the highest regard, then you don't have a need to change or fix or save them. We can just be present to whatever they're perceiving and let that be so. It's okay. And that makes us all feel safer.
Well, I mean, how strange is it when you hear out loud, like, say you and me are in the park and we don't know each other, and I get self-conscious when I need ketchup, and I'm afraid to go over and say, hey, can I get some ketchup? And we take ourselves as somehow I'm bothering you, or somehow you're going to get mad or something weird, rather than, hey, that's friendly. It's a friendly thing to ask as much as it's a friendly thing to give. Right. And just to be friendly with each other without this whole isolation. Even like even in our little parks, people are isolating themselves in their little corners. I know with the COVID, it's a little mandatory, but the point is still the same. We're isolating ourselves, and so we're isolating our own consciousness rather than getting to know this guy. One of the you might have to edit this, But one of the greatest places I think we should be looking right now on how to do this community-friendly community work together thing is with the migrant workers. Those cats get together. They don't know each other. They come from different places. They go down to the park. They have a few beers. They barbecue something on the grill, and they share everything.
They share everything. Yes.
And there's plenty for everyone. And that's, or in places where there's poverty, like in my neighborhood growing up, we had one basketball in 5 houses.
Yeah.
So we shared. And so it was just a normal thing. And we had at my house, we had the baseballs and the gloves. And so everybody shared everything so we could play together rather than, and finding reasons of how to be together rather than this individuation of everybody having their own so we can be apart.
Yeah. And, in my studies of, primates and primate behavior, I've been doing a lot of research about tribes and, how successful tribes did it in the egalitarian societies where everybody did share. There wasn't somebody having more than the other. Primates are playful. We like to touch. We like to play. We like to be friendly. We want to connect, So I see that missing. And I appreciate your point because I see that we're acting against our actual true biological nature when we isolate like that.
Well, the hostility is so intense towards men right now. Yeah. I mean, if an adult man goes and hugs a kid, pedophile. And then we work ourselves backwards after the damage is done. Yep. That's craziness. And these young men are growing up in that. Oh, they're denying themselves because they're sparing themselves from the personal attacks that our culture is creating to try to control each other. Yeah. And so they'll be silent at school when things aren't right because they don't want to be labeled as anything other than like, I'm a student. When I'm in school, I'm a student. I'm not a politician. I shouldn't be taught politics. I should be taught math. Yep. I don't need to learn psychology. I need to learn grammar instead of this other craziness that's going on.
Yeah.
It's like,
I know that you and I share this feeling that biology is sort of at the root of who we are, not so much psychology, that we've become a little bit over psychologicalized in our culture, which I also believe. I know we're not saying that there's not a place for psychology. Of course there is. It's just overemphasized. And I think that we sort of deny, especially young people growing up, that their biology has all the wisdom they actually need. When we were putting together the right way, we defined intelligence as a combination of your experience and your intuition. That's your wisdom. And I think that we need to, trust that people have intelligence, and part of their natural biological intelligence includes wisdom and experience, and that can get them very far in life, especially if they're respectful of themselves and others.
Yeah, well, I think that there's I love psychology, but psychology is an art, not a science.
That's for sure.
Which allows it to evolve, which allows it to develop. It allows for nuances, which is all neocortex stuff. Yep. It's beyond the instinct of living. And so it's important to have the skills to understand that.
Correct.
But that's not until like 27 or 28 years old.
Yeah.
It's like that trying to get a kid to understand psychology is just trying to get them to understand how to manipulate people and how they're being manipulated.
Yeah.
What are they going to trust?
Yeah. No, I know we're on the same page with that. And it's a big deal, really big deal. And that's the root of our model, that nobody needs to be fixed. They need to trust who they are. And we always emphasize the biology, certainly at the YMUW. And I agree with you. Later on, the psychology should be leaked in as their prefrontal cortex can actually understand it and apply it,
Right.
Versus
exactly.
waiting. Instead of beating them over the head when they're 15 and they don't actually really know what you're talking about because their biology says, I got to go steal some stuff, or I got to go out of the house and I got to go try some shit out that I know is not right, but I got to do it.
I got to go jump off something.
Yeah, right. So we have to.
It starts at 4 years old. Mm-hmm. Risk taking starts, the effect of testosterone and risk taking starts for males between 2 and 4 years old.
Yeah, we're not going to psychologicalize that out of our body minds at this point.
No, sure. Not at all.
So I want to thank you. I really do. I want to thank you, Mitch, because as I said in the beginning, and I want everybody to know, whoever watches this, that your wisdom, your force, your push, your confidence is what leaked into everybody else, me included, to go do all the great work we've now done 20 years later since we started this thing. So I personally want to tell you how much I love you and thank you that you still do all this for us and still, keep us standing straight. So thank you for all that. I really appreciate it.
Well, remember years ago, what we said was, we're going to do this until it's just a regular thing to do. When the men take out the young men at a certain time, it's just an average thing in our culture. It's not a special event anymore.
Yep. Yeah, and that's my vision too. It's like my vision has always been like there'll come a certain time of year where everybody looks at their clock, so to speak, or their calendar, goes, it's rite of passage time.
Yeah.
So all the communities support it. All the communities can't wait. Just like in my visit to Africa, when I watched that Samburu tribe, like those young men are held and in the highest regard for getting initiated. So that's my vision, that all around the world there's rite of passage, and we're all teaching similar values so that we have a world that's based on virtues that allow for caring and cooperative relationships and all that. So again, thank you for leading that charge. And for you parents who want to know more about the work that we do with your sons, call us at 800-719-9302. Email us at info@ymuw.org. We always love getting back to all of you. We're a grassroots organization. We love to connect. So thank you, Mitch, for making the time. Thank you. Viewers. Welcome. Thank you, viewers, for watching, and stay in touch with us. Thank you for watching. Good night.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.